Before sunrise, most prisons look silent from the outside. Tall fences, towers, and long shadows stretching across empty yards. But hidden deep inside the correctional network is a place almost no one ever sees. A facility so quiet, so controlled, and so deliberately unrecognizable that even officers from other prisons barely know where it is. This is the prison no one talks about, a location designed not for punishment, but for disappearance. It has no giant signs, no towering walls that scream, high security, no dramatic sirens or lights. From the outside, it looks like any normal government building. But the truth behind those walls is different. This is where the system sends inmates who cannot remain anywhere else. High-risk individuals, sensitive cases, dangerous masterminds, and inmates whose presence in a regular prison would trigger violence, escape attempts, or national-level threats. Every part of this prison is built with one purpose: to stay invisible. Transfers happen at odd hours, using unmarked vans that blend into regular traffic. Officers move with precision, speaking in coded communication. Inmates arrive with no noise, no announcement, and no paper trail that the public can access. When someone enters this place, their presence becomes a controlled secret inside the system. Inside, every hallway is monitored, every step is tracked, and every action is recorded. There are no crowded cell blocks, no loud movements of hundreds of inmates. Instead, this prison operates with a small population where silence itself is a form of control. To the outside world, these inmates seem forgotten. But here, behind these walls, nothing goes unnoticed. This documentary will take you into that hidden world, exploring how a prison can exist in plain sight, yet remain unknown to almost everyone. We will uncover how inmates are selected, how officers operate with absolute precision, how communication is restricted, and why the system needs a facility that stays off the radar. This is not about brutality, not about chaos, not about shock value. Before we begin, tap like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us uncover the darkest corners of the prison system. Now let's step inside. From the outside, this facility looks ordinary, too ordinary for anyone driving past to question it. Its walls are the same gray tone as many government buildings. Its roofline is flat, clean, and unremarkable. There are no towers stretching into the sky, no dramatic razor wire fences, and no visible signs of a prison environment. Even the parking area seems small, almost minimal. And this is the first clue that this place is not meant to be identified. Every part of its appearance has been shaped to avoid attention, curiosity, and recognition. The story of why this hidden prison exists begins years earlier, during a period when the correctional system struggled with rising inmate conflicts, organized group activity, and high-profile cases that brought too much attention to traditional facilities. State and federal agencies realized they needed somewhere different, somewhere that could quietly contain the individuals who could create instability if placed in regular prisons. It wasn't about creating a harsher environment. It was about creating a controlled environment that could operate without the noise of publicity. Inside the network of correctional planning meetings, a concept emerged: a low-profile facility, disguised within a cluster of administrative structures, with a small inmate population and a staff trained to work with extreme discretion. The idea was simple. If a building doesn't look like a prison, it doesn't attract questions. And if people don't ask questions, then sensitive operations can continue smoothly. When construction began, little information was released to the public. Most people assumed the buildings were part of a large administrative expansion. The blueprints avoided obvious security design cues. Even the contractors working on certain sections were told only what they needed to know. It wasn't secrecy for secrecy's sake. It was secrecy built into the foundation. Once completed, the facility operated differently from day one. While most prisons book new intakes openly, this one uses controlled channels. Transfers arrive at irregular hours, often late at night or early before dawn. Instead of large inmate buses, smaller unmarked vehicles transport one or two individuals at a time. Routes are chosen carefully to reduce public exposure. And the officers involved in these transfers follow procedures that ensure the movement is smooth, silent, and unnoticed. The staff who work here undergo a different kind of preparation. While they receive normal correctional training, They also receive scenario-based guidance focused on communication control, documentation accuracy, and managing inmates who may require strict oversight without unnecessary confrontation. The goal is not force, it is precision. Every officer understands that this facility survives on the idea that nothing becomes chaotic. There are no surprise movements, no sudden crowding, no miscommunications that lead to confusion. The entire environment runs like a quiet machine. Inside the building, hallways are clean and calm. There is no heavy foot traffic, no loud cell block noise, and no constant movement of large groups. Everything is planned. Inmates here are selected based on very specific criteria: risk of being targeted, risk of influencing others, ongoing sensitive cases, behavioral histories that require controlled surroundings, or individuals whose communication must be closely monitored to prevent outside manipulation. These selections aren't random. They follow strict assessments done by multiple departments. The living spaces are built to reduce unnecessary interaction. Units are smaller, separated, and designed to maintain order without requiring aggressive physical structures. Doors operate smoothly and quietly. Cameras cover angles that ensure visibility without creating a claustrophobic environment. Officers do rounds at intervals that maintain safety, but avoid the constant tension seen in some traditional prisons. This controlled calmness affects the inmates the moment they arrive. Many are accustomed to the noise and routine pressure of large prisons: shouting, movement, arguments, and unpredictable tension. But in this facility, the quiet is immediate. The lack of sound, the absence of large groups, and the steady routine create a feeling that can be unsettling at first. For inmates who thrive on attention or influence, this environment removes their audience. For those who face threats in other prisons, it can feel like a protective shield. Meals are delivered with timing and order. Movements happen through staged sequences. Medical checks, communication reviews, and administrative evaluations are all scheduled with purpose. Nothing happens spontaneously. The environment is structured to give officers full observability while reducing chances for conflict. Communication, too, is tightly managed. Phone calls are limited to approved numbers. Mail goes through extensive checks. Visits, when approved, follow rules that ensure safety without drawing attention to who is housed here. Some inmates have communication restrictions because of past attempts to coordinate harmful actions or influence others outside prison walls. Here, those attempts are nearly impossible. One of the most defining parts of the prison is its operations center, a room where officers monitor movement, track activities, and manage the entire schedule of the day. It is not dramatic or filled with flashing lights. Instead, it resembles a quiet control room with screens showing cameras, charts, and logs. Every decision made here affects the stability of the entire facility. The officers in this room understand the stakes. They know that their work supports not just this prison, but sometimes broader investigations and safety concerns. But the true secret of this prison is not its security or its design. It is the fact that nearly everything inside runs with the intention of preventing attention. There are no incidents that make headlines, no viral videos, no major scandals. When problems occur, they are handled quietly and efficiently. This does not mean the prison is perfect. No facility is flawless. But the systems here are built to reduce the risks that other prisons deal with daily. Chapter 1 ends with this key understanding. This is a place built not just to hold inmates, but to control information, to protect certain individuals, contain others, and keep operations invisible. A prison designed to exist without existing in the public's mind. Very few inmates ever set foot inside this hidden facility, and that alone raises a deeper question. How are they chosen? The answer lies in a long, quiet system of evaluations that begins long before an inmate is ever placed on a transfer list. The selection process is not random, not political, and not influenced by public attention. It is based on layered assessments conducted by intelligence units, administrative teams, and specialized officers who study patterns, risks, and behaviors across the entire correctional network. The process usually starts when an inmate becomes difficult to manage in a regular prison, not because of violence alone, but because their presence influences situations around them. Some individuals have a unique ability to create tension even without trying. One inmate might be the center of a long-running conflict between groups. Another may have sensitive legal matters that require strict monitoring. Some might be receiving threats. Others might be sending quiet messages that cause problems outside the prison walls. When these situations reach a point where normal management strategies no longer work, the inmate's file is flagged for review. The first stage of review is done by the prison's internal team. They collect reports, observe behavior, and examine any patterns suggesting that the inmate could benefit from or require relocation to a controlled environment. This stage is detailed and careful. Officers do not rush to label someone as high risk. They gather information slowly: interactions with other inmates, communication patterns, disciplinary records, and any indications of rising influence. A quiet inmate might be more dangerous than a loud one if they regularly communicate with people outside the prison who can act on their instructions. Once the internal team completes its assessment, the file moves up the chain. Here, administrators compare the inmate's situation with available housing options. They consider questions such as: is the inmate being targeted? Is the inmate influencing others? Is the inmate involved in ongoing legal cases? Is there sensitive information that requires close monitoring? Is the inmate safer in a controlled environment? If the inmate fits the criteria, the case is referred to specialized units, people who understand the operations of the hidden facility. These units include intelligence staff who review every detail of the inmate's background. They look at communication logs, past affiliations, and patterns that may not be obvious at first glance. Their job is to determine whether transferring the individual will protect them, protect others, or help stabilize ongoing issues inside the correctional system. Not every inmate recommended makes it through this stage. Many are rejected because their situation can be handled through other management methods. The facility's small size means only the most necessary cases qualify. Each available bed is treated like a strategic resource, not simply a place to fill. Once an inmate is approved, the next step is planning the transfer. This part is handled with care to avoid drawing attention. Unlike regular prison transfers with larger buses and predictable schedules, this one requires timing, discretion, and coordination across multiple departments. Officers involved in the move receive limited information, often being told only what is essential for the operation. This is not done to hide things from staff, but to ensure the process stays controlled and secure. The scheduling stage considers more than just travel time. It looks at environmental factors: weather, traffic, population density on certain routes, and even periods when nearby communities are less active. Transfer teams choose times when movement is least noticeable. The goal is not secrecy for dramatic effect. It is simply to prevent unnecessary risk. High-profile or sensitive inmates can become targets if their movements are predictable. On the day of the transfer, the selected inmate is taken through a calm, step-by-step process. No loud instructions. No dramatic displays. Officers handle the situation with professionalism and consistency. The inmate is informed of the relocation without revealing the exact destination until necessary. Their belongings are carefully documented. Their paperwork is double-checked. Every detail matters. The vehicle used for transport is simple and unmarked, blending into normal traffic. It is not armored, not oversized, not attention-catching. It looks like any regular government vehicle. Inside, officers maintain communication with command units using secure, private channels. The route is monitored in real time, allowing officers to adjust if needed. When the vehicle arrives at the facility, the process continues with the same quiet precision. There are no groups waiting, no crowds of officers, only a small team trained specifically for arrivals. The inmate steps into a hallway where the atmosphere is calm, structured, and intentionally predictable. The absence of chaos helps reduce tension, especially for individuals who experience stress or conflict at previous facilities. After arrival, the inmate undergoes orientation. They are informed of the facility's rules, routines, and communication procedures. Everything is explained clearly: when meals happen, how movement works, when medical checks occur, and how they can request information or assistance. The goal is not to overwhelm them. It is to create understanding and stability from the beginning. A mental health evaluation is also part of the intake process, not because the inmate is assumed to be unstable, but because the new environment can feel unusual or unfamiliar. Staff members want to ensure that anyone entering this facility understands the changes they will experience and has access to support if needed. Once orientation is complete, the inmate is assigned a housing unit. These units are structured to reduce unnecessary interaction while still allowing routine, access to services, and safety. Officers monitor the transition period closely. Some inmates adapt quickly. Others need more time to adjust to the quiet and the highly controlled schedule. Meanwhile, administrative staff finalize the paperwork and update systems across the correctional network. In most other prisons, inmate transfers are routine. But in this facility, every piece of documentation must be exact. Accuracy ensures smooth operations and prevents confusion across the system. Even small errors can create gaps in information, and that is something this prison avoids at all costs. By the end of the first day, the inmate's life has changed completely. They move from noisy, crowded environments into a place built around structure, silence, and control. They are not forgotten. They are not hidden away without purpose. They are placed here because the system has determined that this is where they can be most effectively managed, whether for their own safety or the safety of others. Chapter 2 reveals one truth. This facility does not receive inmates randomly. Every arrival is the result of careful assessment, strategic decision-making, and a system designed to maintain stability across the entire correctional network. Life inside this hidden prison does not look like the loud, chaotic environments often shown in movies or typical documentaries. Instead, the daily routine is built on calm structure. Every hour, every movement, and every interaction is shaped to maintain order without unnecessary stress. In most prisons, the noise level is constant, doors slamming, voices echoing, officers calling instructions. But here, silence is part of the design. The day begins early, but not with the usual commotion. Officers move quietly through the halls, checking each unit with a steady pace. Their presence is calm, steady, and predictable. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is shouted. This rhythm helps prevent tension and allows inmates to wake into a controlled atmosphere. The stability of the environment is intentional. It sets the tone for the entire day. Inmates follow routines similar to other prisons: waking, cleaning, meals, medical checks, but the difference lies in the scale and the precision. The population is small, which means officers can manage activities without creating crowded hallways or long waiting lines. Movements happen with planned timing, and inmates rarely encounter large groups. This reduces conflicts, misunderstandings, and pressure. Breakfast is served at the same time each day. The trays are simple and follow the dietary guidelines used across the correctional system. Officers deliver meals quietly, with clear communication and respect. There is no rush to finish, no shouting to speed people up. When inmates finish eating, their trays are collected methodically, and the unit returns to calm. After breakfast, each inmate transitions into the scheduled part of their morning. Some attend educational programs. Others receive legal updates, medical checks, or counseling sessions. The facility is not designed to isolate inmates completely. Rather, it is meant to create an environment where every activity is structured and monitored. Programs are limited, but they exist. Small classrooms allow inmates to continue basic education or work on controlled assignments. These spaces are quiet, supervised, and carefully organized. One of the most important features of daily life here is communication monitoring. Because many inmates are placed in this facility for reasons involving influence, safety, or sensitive information, their communications must be reviewed carefully. Phone calls occur through approved lines, with officers ensuring the conversation remains appropriate. Mail is examined for hidden messages. In some cases, communication is temporarily restricted to prevent unwanted connections. This might sound strict, but the system is built to prevent misuse. Many inmates transferred here have histories involving complex networks, harmful instructions, or outside influence. By monitoring communication, officers protect not only the facility, but also the public and the inmates themselves. Movement inside the prison is one of the clearest examples of how different this place is. In regular prisons, moving hundreds of inmates through halls is noisy and stressful. Here, movement happens in small numbers, sometimes even one at a time. Doors are controlled remotely and quietly. Officers coordinate movements through radios without creating loud announcements. This prevents the buildup of large groups, which is often where conflicts begin in other facilities. The housing units reflect the same philosophy. Each unit holds fewer inmates than normal. Cells are spaced for visibility, but also for calm. The design focuses on reducing unnecessary noise and creating a stable atmosphere. Lighting is steady and bright enough for safety, but not harsh. The temperature is regulated to avoid discomfort. Small details that seem unimportant elsewhere matter greatly here. Mental health support is another crucial part of life inside this facility. Because the environment is controlled and quiet, some inmates may initially feel isolated. To prevent this, trained staff conduct regular wellness checks. These meetings ensure inmates remain stable and adjust to the new routine. In most cases, the structured environment reduces anxiety rather than increasing it. But officers understand that everyone adapts differently. Recreation time is also part of the schedule. While the areas are smaller than typical prison yards, they are clean, safe, and supervised. Inmates can exercise, walk, or simply get fresh air. Again, the goal is not punishment but stability. The facility wants inmates to remain healthy, physically and mentally, even while under strict supervision. The midday and afternoon cycles mirror the morning. Meals, scheduled programs, controlled movement, and structured routines. Officers rotate shifts carefully to keep energy levels consistent. They understand that their approach directly affects the atmosphere inside the units. A calm officer sets the tone for a calm unit. This mindset shapes every part of their training. One of the most interesting parts of this prison is how officers and inmates communicate. There is very little shouting or confrontation. Instructions are clear and calm. Disputes are addressed quickly and professionally. Because the population is small, officers can build a better understanding of each inmate's behavior patterns. This makes it easier to predict and prevent problems before they happen. Another defining aspect is the absence of public noise around the facility. In many prisons, news reports, legal controversies, or public protests create pressure and tension. But because this prison is unknown to most people, none of that external noise reaches the inmates or the staff. The isolation from public attention allows officers to focus on operations without distractions. As the day continues into the evening, the facility transitions into an even quieter routine. Dinner is served consistently with the same calm procedures. After meals, inmates return to their units for final checks. Officers review documentation, update reports, and ensure that the day's movements were recorded correctly. Paperwork is essential. Even small details matter in a facility where everything must remain controlled. When night falls, the prison becomes almost completely silent. Officers patrol quietly, cameras watch steady hallways, and systems continue their work. The lack of noise helps maintain order and reduces stress for everyone inside. For inmates, nighttime is often a moment of reflection. They understand they are in a place unlike others, a facility built not to punish harder, but to control more carefully. Some inmates prefer this environment. Those who faced threats in other prisons feel safer here. Others miss the activity and noise of larger facilities. But all of them recognize that life here follows a pattern built to keep everything predictable and calm. By the end of Chapter 3, one thing becomes clear. This hidden prison functions as a quiet world inside the correctional system, a place where every minute is structured, every action is monitored, and every decision is made to maintain stability without chaos. To understand this hidden prison fully, you must understand the people who keep it running. Facilities like this do not operate on concrete walls or advanced cameras alone. They operate on the discipline, focus, and steadiness of officers who choose to work in an environment where almost nothing they do will ever be recognized publicly. These officers are the backbone of the invisible system, and their work shapes every moment inside the prison. Unlike officers in large facilities who deal with hundreds of inmates daily, the staff here operate with a small but highly sensitive population. This means every decision they make carries weight. Their training is not only about physical safety or emergency response. It is about precision, communication control, and predictability. Those three elements define their work more than anything else. New officers assigned to this facility go through a selection process similar to the inmates, but in the opposite direction. They are chosen not because they stand out, but because they are consistent. Leaders look for people who stay calm under pressure, who follow rules without shortcuts, and who can communicate clearly without raising their voice. Officers who seek attention or praise would not fit here. This prison needs staff who are steady and dependable, not loud or dramatic. Their training begins with the foundations of normal correctional work, safety protocols, defensive techniques, inmate interaction policies. But after that, the specialized training starts. They learn how to operate in an environment where silence is part of the design. They practice giving clear instructions without shouting, maintaining professionalism even when inmates challenge them, and writing precise reports that contain no mistakes. Because this facility relies on documentation to maintain control, an officer's accuracy is just as important as their physical presence. Another skill officers develop is awareness. In large prisons, officers often monitor movement in groups, with many things happening at once. Here, movement is smaller but more sensitive. Officers must notice small changes, tone of voice, body language, or even shifts in routine. These details help prevent misunderstandings before they develop into problems. A quiet inmate does not necessarily mean a stable one. Officers learn to read the room in subtle ways. The operations center is where much of this awareness comes together. Officers sit in front of screens showing hallway views, unit entrances, and activity logs. The center is not chaotic. It looks more like a coordination hub, where officers speak calmly and update information throughout the day. Each shift change is exact, with officers reviewing what happened, what needs attention, and what adjustments might be required. This handoff prevents gaps in communication and keeps the entire system smooth. The relationships officers build with inmates here are also different. Because the facility population is small, officers often know each inmate's routine, communication patterns, and behavior tendencies. This familiarity helps them manage situations early. For example, if an inmate who normally participates in programs suddenly withdraws without explanation, officers notice and follow up. If an inmate expresses concern about a phone call or legal matter, officers document it and ensure it reaches the right department. This environment also reduces many of the conflicts seen in other prisons. Without crowding and without the pressure of large groups, officers rarely need to raise their voice. Many situations that would escalate elsewhere remain calm here, simply because the structure prevents chaos. That does not mean the officers let their guard down. Far from it. They remain alert, trained, and ready to respond. But they do so with an approach built on professionalism rather than force. One of the most challenging parts of the job is confidentiality. Officers cannot talk openly with friends or family about daily events or who is housed inside the facility. They cannot share details about transfers or intelligence reviews. Their work stays inside the building. This level of confidentiality requires discipline and trust. It also builds a unique bond among the staff, because they depend on one another in a way that few other jobs require. Officer wellness is taken seriously here. Because the facility is quiet and controlled, the work requires mental focus that can be draining over time. Supervisors encourage officers to take breaks, rotate positions, and seek support if needed. A healthy officer team keeps the facility running smoothly. Mistakes caused by fatigue or stress could disrupt the stability the prison depends on. Teamwork shapes every shift. Officers communicate clearly through radios and scheduled check-ins. They support one another during movements, programs, and emergencies. When a situation arises, no one handles it alone. The training emphasizes that correctional work in this facility is not about personal authority. It is about coordinated effort. In the evening, officers maintain the same steady presence. They conduct final checks, update reports, and ensure that all movements for the day were completed without error. The calm atmosphere helps reduce stress for officers too, allowing them to finish their shift with a clear mind. The predictable routine makes their work less chaotic compared to other prisons, but not less demanding. Precision requires just as much strength as confrontation, sometimes more. By understanding the officer's role, you see the real structure behind this facility. The silence is not accidental. The calm is not natural. The smooth operations are not luck. Everything is crafted by officers who understand that their job is bigger than them. They safeguard inmates who cannot be safely housed elsewhere. They prevent communication threats that could impact people outside the building. They maintain control without drawing attention. They protect a system designed to disappear. This chapter shows one truth. A prison like this can only exist if the officers inside it are disciplined enough to keep it invisible. Their silence is not just part of the job. It is the foundation of the entire design. Every prison in the world has a purpose. Some are built for punishment, some for rehabilitation, some for high-security containment. But this facility, this quiet, hidden institution, was built for something different: stability. A type of stability that cannot exist in public view because the very nature of its work depends on silence. To understand why this place must remain invisible, you have to look at what happens across the entire correctional system. Large prisons operate like small cities. Thousands of inmates, hundreds of staff, and constant movement create environments where disorder can spread quickly. One threat, one conflict, one miscommunication can ripple across an entire facility. In those environments, the loudest voices often draw attention, and the most influential individuals can shift the balance dramatically. This hidden prison was created to remove that power, not by force, but by structure. Inmates transferred here are often individuals whose presence in a regular prison causes instability. They may not be violent at all. Sometimes, their influence alone is enough to shape the environment around them. Others arrive because they are targets, people who cannot survive in normal units without constant protection. Some come because their cases involve sensitive information, and a small number arrive because they require continuous observation to prevent misuse of communication, coordination of harmful activities, or contact with dangerous networks. Inside this facility, those risks disappear. Not because inmates are forgotten, but because the environment is designed so that potential problems cannot grow. One of the main reasons visibility remains restricted is to protect ongoing investigations. Some inmates here cooperate with authorities in sensitive cases. Some are witnesses, informants, or individuals connected to criminal activity that spans across states or countries. If the public knew exactly where they were housed, or if their transfers were broadcast like typical prison movements, their safety could be compromised instantly. The invisibility of the facility protects them in ways no standard isolation unit could. Another reason for the secrecy is the nature of the prison structure. If the world knew too much about how the system operates, it could become a target, not only for escape attempts, but for attempts to interfere with operations, break communication restrictions, or gather intelligence. By blending into an ordinary government complex, the facility removes temptation. People who don't know something exists cannot attempt to exploit it. The staff working inside understand this better than anyone. They know that the invisibility is not a choice, it is a responsibility. Their job requires discipline, not attention. No media crews document their daily routines. No awards are given for keeping the environment stable. Their motivation comes from understanding the importance of the work, not from public recognition. The inmates feel the impact of this invisibility differently. For some, the calmness is a relief. They finally have a place where they are not surrounded by conflict, noise, or constant pressure from other inmates. For others, the lack of public attention creates a sense of isolation, an understanding that their situation is part of a controlled system where routine outweighs personality. But even for those who struggle at first, the consistency eventually becomes familiar. The facility structure leaves little room for confusion. Inside the units, you can see how this invisibility shapes daily life. There is no crowd movement, no major announcements, no loud confrontations. Everything follows a set timeline. Medical checks happen quietly. Meals arrive without noise. Programs run with small groups. Officers speak clearly but calmly. The environment almost trains itself over time. Good habits strengthen, and tension fades because there is no place for it to grow. Across the correctional system, this prison also serves as a stabilizing force. When administrators face threats, rising conflicts, or sensitive cases, they need somewhere to relocate individuals without causing a chain reaction. This facility becomes the answer. It absorbs the pressure points, the people whose presence elsewhere could create widespread issues. It acts like a release valve for the entire prison network, preventing larger problems before they begin. Another reason this prison stays hidden is to protect officers. Even in normal prisons, officers can become targets for harassment, threats, or pressure from outside groups. In a facility housing sensitive individuals, those risks multiply. By keeping the location low profile, the system reduces exposure. Officers can do their job without worrying about outside attention or retaliation. The infrastructure of the prison also depends on invisibility. It is not built like a fortress. It does not rely on tall walls or heavily guarded watchtowers. It relies on the fact that people do not realize what it is. A simple appearance makes the facility less vulnerable than a high-profile supermax. In some ways, blending into the background becomes its strongest form of defense. Every decision made inside the facility supports this idea. Documentation remains internal. Communication stays controlled. Transfers are timed when no one is watching. Staff follow their routines consistently. Inmates remain in controlled housing that prevents communication misuse. The structure stays quiet, steady, and predictable, not by chance, but by deliberate planning. As you examine all these elements together, the inmate selection process, the controlled environment, the officer training, the communication restrictions, you begin to see the full picture. This prison is not just a place to hold people. It is a safeguard for the entire correctional system. It protects inmates who need isolation. It separates individuals who cause instability. It shields investigations. It quietly prevents violence and confusion across multiple facilities. This chapter closes with one final, simple truth. This prison remains invisible not because it is forgotten, but because it is essential. Its silence protects the system. Its secrecy protects people. Its calmness protects lives. It is the quiet center of a loud world, an institution that does its work out of sight so that the entire correctional network can remain stable. Hidden inside the correctional system is a place designed to be quiet, controlled, and unnoticed. A prison that doesn't look like a prison. A facility where the loudest sound is the click of a door closing and the soft footsteps of officers moving with purpose. After following the structure, routines, and people inside these walls, one thing becomes clear. Invisibility is not an accident. It is the mission. Most prisons demand attention. They function with noise, movement, and constant tension. But this one survives by doing the opposite. It reduces conflicts before they start. It protects inmates others cannot protect. It helps officers maintain order without force. And it strengthens the entire correctional network by absorbing the cases that create instability elsewhere. There are no headlines about what happens here. No reporters waiting at the gates. No dramatic news segments. The stories inside this facility are documented quietly, handled professionally, and stored away without public noise. In a world where information spreads fast and chaos can escalate quickly, this prison remains steady because it chooses to stay unseen. As we end this journey, remember this. Not every important structure is meant to be visible. Not every crucial operation is meant to be known. Some places are designed to protect the system by staying in the background. This prison is one of them, a silent piece of the correctional puzzle, operating in the shadows so that the larger system can function in the light.